Hello everyone, this is Sandy from We Are Talk of Thailand. 2021 was a pretty bad year for everybody, I think. I don't think anybody was happy with that, nor probably 2020 before it. But for us as a family here living in Pattaya in Thailand, 2022 is the start of an annus horribilis, as some people say, or a very bad year so far for us, because I think just before the turn of the year, then I started developing signs of COVID, and I was feeling by New Year's Day or the day after New Year's Day, I was feeling pretty poorly. And I was that way for 2 or 3 days before I started to pull out of this situation. But then, unfortunately, my wife was going into the same situation where she was showing all the signs of having COVID also, and she was going downhill, so to speak, and I really felt quite sorry for her. Then on that day that she was going downhill and I was starting to recover, something happened, and something very, very significant that is worth telling the story about in this video. And it's something I'm not particularly proud of. I've done something that I don't know why I done it, but the end result was it nearly cost me the life of one of my family because I didn't react properly to something that was happening at the time. It's troubled me ever since then, and I've been trying to analyze what went wrong and what happened. And I think I understand it better now that I'm feeling a bit better. And I want to tell this story because if this story helps anyone, then it's worth telling. It's not a long story, but it's some thoughts and what I believe happened on the day in question and how it could have turned very, very bad, even worse in just minutes. So please, if you're interested, keep watching, because if this helps anyone at any time, then it's worth making this video. Thank you. Okay, before I tell this story, I think it's important that people need to understand me a little bit more, because then it gives an idea on my way of thinking on the day of the event. My life has been made up. I started life and I've done a lot of time in the military, and whilst in the military, I came across many incidents in death, etc. Firstly, let me tell you, when I first joined the military and I was going through training, we all have to do, in basic training, we have to do some medical training on how to assist in emergencies, etc. like that. And during my initial period, when I first joined the Royal Navy in the UK, my first experience of going to these medical training units, I remember thinking, thank God I did not decide to have a career in medicine or medical care, because even the first couple of days when we were seeing videos and films, purely graphical, with graphical figures, and that been hurt or injured or in some way, and they're pumping blood, and it's all animated figures. Even the animated figures made me feel very, very queasy. And I thought, this is not really what I like. But as time went on, and as I progressed into the Navy, and I went through various leadership courses and I got advanced, etc., then you got more detailed medical training on how to do more serious, or give more serious assistance in the events of injuries or whatever that you come across. And it's true that I believe that by the time I finished the Navy, there was a lot of things I can do when things go wrong that can possibly help save lives or help people get a better result after serious injuries, etc. Now, when it comes to injuries and when I've used these skills, if I may call them that, is they have been used on several occasions. Whilst I was in the Navy, there was occasions where we were in situations where people got very badly injured by fire, by explosions, etc. And there were times when I was required, or when I was in the position that if I didn't do something, there was a good chance that somebody was going to have a lot more serious injuries or even worse. And I got kind of used to giving this sort of help. And what I'm trying to say really is that I became very close to death. Not personal death, but working with death and working with near death. And it got to the point that really the end result is I'm not scared of death. There's nothing that scares me about death at all. And death is death. One of the other factors I would say that changed my root factors, it probably changed my religion. In fact, it disposed of my religion, actually, because when you're working with people that are seriously injured and you see what pains and sufferings, etc., they're going through and how quickly life is snuffed, it kind of destroys your religion. Now I believe in the Darwin type theories, of evolution, and we're born, we've evolved, we're born, we live our lives, we die, and that's it, finished. There is no greater place to go to. Nobody super created us. This is what our mothers and fathers did, obviously. They done the creative part, but it's only a temporary thing that they've created. And when life expires, that's it, finished. There is no, to me, there is no other life. And a lot of people I know that's been in similar situations to me, and I think they agree. After leaving the military, I've been working all over the world, and I've been in several dangerous places and situations, and I've had times where I've had to render assistance in oil fields after accidents. There's a particular instance with a helicopter crash where we were rescuing survivors out of the helicopter. And all these times, the skills that I was given in the Navy have come in handy. I've tried to assist with people a lot and save lives a lot, not always been. In fact, I would say more often than not that I've not succeeded to the degree that I'd want to succeed. But at least I had an idea of what to do, and I gave it a try. Even down to in ordinary life in the UK and here in Thailand, I've been instances where people had a heart attack in the side of the street, and I've went in there and I've been given CPR. And 3 occasions that's happened to me actually in my lifetime, in normal civilian life. I've given CPR. And one other guy that was choking to death in a restaurant here in Thailand, he had a heart attack, and I managed to keep him going to the cavalry come with their ambulance, etc., and took over from me. And he actually survived, but only for a week before his heart gave out on him. So that's what I'm trying to say. You've got to understand that I'm not easily phased out by death or serious injury. I can take all that, and that makes the story I'm about to tell you a little bit more understandable, I hope. It certainly helps me to understand it a bit better. So enough about me. So what actually happened? Well, as I stated at the beginning of this video, is that I was about 2 to 3 days into having these COVID symptoms, and I had been feeling quite ill, albeit in the upper respiratory system and the head and throat and coughing but what is significant, and where you'll understand why, was that I didn't actually. One of the symptoms I read about and understood was that your temperature you'd probably get fever-like temperatures, and I didn't have that. I didn't experience that at all. I was taking my temperature regularly while I was going through these symptoms, and my temperature remained stable. So I put that down to my vaccines helping me, etc., and I didn't really give it too much thought at that time. So on the third day of me having these symptoms and starting to recover and starting to feel out, I was down to having a pretty painful throat, mild headaches, and that was not so much strength. I remember it was a problem, strength, fatigue. Even though not doing very little, I had no energy to get up and go, and this was a problem. And night fevers was the other thing that I suffered from. But I was getting better. I definitely turned the corner, and I was beginning to feel that I was improving. But unfortunately, on that particular day, my wife started succumbing to these very same symptoms. And it got to the stage in the evening of that third day, the first day of my wife's decline, that at a certain time in the evening, because I was monitoring her quite closely and trying to help her through the day, when I was speaking to her about something in the evening, and she wasn't responding. And what she was talking about, I had no understanding of what she was saying. And so I thought, I went across and I asked her a couple of questions, and she was not herself, and I knew there was something wrong. So once again, I got the handy thermometer out, and I took her temperature, and it was God, it frightened me. It was 38. It was nearly 38 degrees. And when I touched her forehead here, and it was boiling hot. It was really, really hot. And this is where it went wrong, because normally that would not have phased me out. But I don't know what happened, because at that moment when I knew that, and I could see that she was delirious and was maybe going in and out of coma, I panicked, and I thought, right, okay, I have got to get her to hospital. I've got to get her to hospital. Now, I remember all sorts of things going through my mind. And obviously my daughter's standing there beside me, and what's happening to mummy, etc. And I said, don't worry. I'm thinking, okay, I've got to get her to hospital as quickly as I can. Now, how do I do that? Oh, my first thing was I realized I didn't even have an emergency telephone number, and I had no idea what the emergency telephone number here in Pattaya in Thailand was to call for assistance. So then I think maybe the pressure on me started to rise. What can I do next? And what can I do next? And my next reaction was to start looking, well, who in the family can I call? Well, my wife does have one niece who works in the government hospital here in Pattaya, and I thought she's the ideal one. So I know she was on Facebook Messenger. I've seen her post things on there. So I quickly got my phone out, went to Facebook Messenger, searched for her, found her, and then tried to get her on Messenger. And fortunately, when I pressed the button, it started ringing. And oh, come on, pick up! I need your help. I need to know what to do. And this is all very much material in my story, because she wasn't picking up, and it seemed to ring for a long, long time. But in hindsight, it probably wasn't that long. But when you're in a state of emergency, then it seems a long time. So I quickly cut that call, and I thought, right, the next option is to phone one of our other nieces, who hopefully know how I can contact one of these hospitals, etc., and to send transport to come and get her. I found the alternative number for another one of our relations, and I started ringing that. But as that number was ringing, my wife's phone suddenly started ringing, and my daughter says to me, "That's Auntie Bibi." Now, Auntie Bibi is the nurse that works in Banglamong General Hospital, government hospital here in Pattaya. Oh, thank God for that! So I cut my call and I picked it up. Now, she knew, this lady knew that I was already suffering COVID symptoms, etc. And she thought, when she saw my phone ringing, and then she tried to contact my wife M, she thought that I was having some sort of problem anyway. But when she heard me talking, I think it confused her too. And I was telling her, M's got a big problem. She's serious, etc. And I want to try and get her to hospital. What do I do? I said, and she said, you've got a problem. I said, no, not me. Listen to me. I said, it's my wife's got the problem. And then she said, well, what do you want me to do? I said, I want you to tell me how I can get her to hospital. She said, Sandy, she says, there's big problems in Pattaya now. She said, there's hospitals have all got queues, long queues waiting to get people in. And it's not going to be easy to get her in a hurry, for sure. She said, you may have to think about going somewhere out town or doing something like that. She said, but she said, can I try and speak to So I said, yeah, sure. And I was shaking M. I said, listen, here's a baby, speak to baby. And then it was then when I stood back, I thought, because at the same time I touched my wife's face to see it was still red hot, and it was still red hot. And then it suddenly, what should have happened in the first place started to click in. God, she's hot. And it's seriously hot. And people know the effects that this can have, as I do know, and I've come across it on many occasions actually, where people overheating. If your head gets so hot, then your brain stops functioning, and if it gets even hotter, then it can cause serious and even more serious problems and even death. And I'm very much aware of that, and I know it's a high priority when you get to these sort of upper temperatures to get the body cooled down as quickly as possible, but in a careful manner also. You can't freeze it very quickly because that can cause just as much damage. So then I was starting to click in as she's talking on the phone. And I just said, okay, I've got to get you cooled down. You know, I said, that's the next objective. And then she said, yeah, she said, B's just say, cool yourself down. So I said, okay, good. Now we're functioning again. Now we're back online again. And very quickly, I had some cold towels and that had been cooled in chilled water with ice cubes, etc., and applying them to her forehead and around her head and on the shoulders and at the top of her body, etc., to start lowering the body temperature in a controlled manner, not as an urgent manner. So we were back into the situation, and I realized that I think I realized at the time that I had lost control of the situation when it happened. And I couldn't understand that because I'm not a person that panics. I've never known myself panic before, but in that moment, now I've given this a lot of reflection. I've tried to identify exactly at that moment of time what actually happened and what went through my head, etc. You know. Let me just firstly say that when we got the body temperature back down to a reasonable level, she very quickly came back and was talking reasonably, and that was the end of the dilemma about temperatures. And by the next morning, her high temperatures were disappeared virtually as well. So that was good. But I think what actually, after giving it much consideration after that time, what actually happened at the moment, as far as I can understand, okay. I think when I looked at the state of her, and I knew it was serious, and there was a very good possibility that this could go very badly wrong. I saw that, and I knew it was likely it could happen, and I had to do something, react quickly. But there were other things going through my mind, that this is my wife and this is the mother of my daughter standing here beside me. And if we lose her, what can we do? And these are all thoughts that I shouldn't have been thinking about. I should have been thinking primarily on the purpose of getting my wife some relief from the situation. But these things were going through my head. And I don't know how that started. And even then, very quickly, you know, and almost without any break at all, I was analysing the situation in my head, what was going on, and I thought, why has she got high temperatures and I've never had any problem with the temperatures? And then I'm thinking, vaccines. It's got to be vaccines. I've had 2 Pfizer vaccines, and she's a Chinese vaccine, which we already know is absolutely no good against this Omicron. It has no efficacy against the Omicron whatsoever, but it was supported with a second jab of the AstraZeneca. So that has some effect on the doing. But maybe I'm totally wrong. I don't know if that's true or false. I'm not that well qualified to be able to make that assumption. But that's the only thing I could see. And then when I'm thinking about the vaccines, and this could be the cause, I'm also aware of her vaccines have got very low efficacy. Better that she would be in hospital to combat this problem that we've got right now. And this is the sort of things that were going through my mind. And everything was pushing me towards, which was probably panic and wrong considerations at that time that I should not even be making. Everything's telling me, get her into hospital. It was totally wrong. And, in that brief few minutes, it may never have happened, but in that brief few minutes, there was a good possibility that she could have got severe brain damage. She could have had other complications. And there's obviously what could have been the very worst end for it all. But fortunately, that was avoided. And thankfully, and I've got to give a lot of thanks also to her niece who works in that hospital, because I think when she took over the conversation from me and took it to Em, then I think I got a degree of, now she's talking to somebody that knows what they're talking about. And that immediately, I think, took pressure away from me. And it let me kick into the normal thing I do if it was my next door neighbor, if it was, or somebody I was met somewhere that had a similar effect. I would probably have kicked in automatically, cool them down and get their temperatures into a safe zone. It's automatic, isn't it, really? Many parents that have, just as an aside, I've got a brother and a sister. The sister's dead now, unfortunately, but a brother and my sister, they both had unexplained cot deaths of babies that were born within the first few months of life. They were found dead in their cot. And it's since been explained that this has been a result of overheating. In many cases, it was a result of them overheating in their cots. And the people certainly in Scotland and probably a lot of other countries, they started putting alarms in the children's rooms that monitored the temperatures and all sorts of things, and gave an alarm as soon as things started to change rapidly, and probably saved a lot of lives. But in conclusion, really, I want to say that if you ever get into this situation, and there's a lot happening at the moment, and it's not all, and there's very little of it good that's happening at the moment. It may be a child, it may be your child, it may be one of your siblings, it may be your wife or your parents, or it could be anybody. But it may be just that you find yourself in a very similar situation, a situation where normally you would cope and be able to provide first-class assistance. But because it's someone that's closer to you and dear to you, then your normal brain pattern doesn't work the same. And try to, if you do, try to remember, if you can just remember a little bit of this story, and it helps you get over that hump on the day and provide some positive assistance. And this video will have been worthwhile, even though I've rambled on a bit. I'm sorry, but I think it was important that you understood where I was coming from. So that's the video, and that's my experience. And since that day, unfortunately, my daughter, the day before yesterday, my daughter was coming up for 6. She's now displaying the COVID symptoms. So it looks like we're self-confining for some time to come. The strange thing about this all, though, is that we got some of these ATK test kits, and it seemed every time we've tried them, they've given us a negative response. But you know, the positive response I'm getting from is what we're reading as the symptoms and what we're going through, and seeing that many people throughout the area here in Pattaya, which is an absolute pandemic area in itself, with the Omicron more than any other area in Thailand. I am sure that what has happened to us, that we know what it is. But anyway, that's that side. So my very last bit of advice, and please think about it and do it, and make sure you know where it is. Make sure you are aware of wherever you are in the world, of what the emergency telephone number is when you need assistance urgently. I had no idea, and I hate myself for being so stupid as not to have thought of that before. It is a little bit strange here in Thailand that hospitals, they don't have they all seem to like to try and, it's like a patient grab. If somebody gets ill, whoever gets there first gets a chance of getting them hospitalized and getting the money from them. But here in Pattaya, there is one rescue service. It's a very simple number. It's 1669, and that gets you instant medical assistance, regardless of hospitals or etc. It gets you the medical assistance. It's supposed to anyway. I haven't tried it, but I now know the number for sure if it ever happened again. Of course, some may ask, well, why didn't I get it and drive her there? But, you know, I think that also went through my head very quickly also, because I thought, right, but that means I've got to take my daughter also, and I've got to leave the house here with all the dogs, etc. Not I'm saying that they have a priority over my family, but we're all a family, and I'm trying to take in all accounts. And if we went to the hospital and I was proved positive there, and my wife was proved positive, what was going to happen to my daughter? Because we were going to get all split up and isolated in different places. All this was going through, and I knew it was better that I tried to stand back and get my wife. But I thought, get my wife away into a hospital where she's getting good care, and I'm here with my daughter, etc. And we're covering the whole field of the family. What's right, what's wrong, I don't know. But that was my train of thought. So I hope you all stay clear of this. Certainly, if you're in Pattaya, you've got a very high possibility of experiencing this. And I didn't believe I would catch it because I'm staying away from town centres, bars, etc. But I've obviously dropped my guard at some time, and I was caught, or we were caught, and it may have been somebody that brought it to us. I don't know, but however we got it, and now we're getting through it, and we're coming to be clear of it for the moment being anyway. Stay safe, and thank you for watching. Bye for now.